Sit back and throw one back with your pinky in the air and a middle finger to the world and join me, the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, as we look back on this day in pro wrestling history. But before we do, put that drink down, like, share, and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get our wrestling history on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is May 3rd, and we're going to start off as we always do on a positive note. That's right, these are your pro wrestling birthdays. 1915, the patriarch of the Hart family, Stu Hart. 1921, the luchador known as Black Shadow. 1967, Australian talent Sam Greco. 1979, CZW star Monsta Mac. And last but not least, 1981, somebody you all might know, the eclectic gentleman, Stephen Watts. Of course, on the flip side of that coin, your pro wrestling deaths for May 3rd. 1996, the incredible, the incomparable, Ray Stevens. Alright, enough of the sad stuff. It's time to get to the meat and potatoes. That's right, these are your pro wrestling history highlights for May 3rd. And we're getting in the way back machine today and going to 1884. H.M. Duffer defeats James McLaughlin for the American Collar and Elbow title in Chicago, Illinois. Jumping all the way to 1946, Lou Thesz defeats Buddy Rogers to win the NWA Texas Heavyweight title in Houston, Texas. This began Thesz's third reign and ended Rogers' third. This is well over a decade before the two would be involved in the NWA World title match that would lead to the formation of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation World title. Fast forwarding into the 50s, 1951, Sonny Myers defeats Dennis Clary for the NWA Central States Heavyweight title in Kansas City, Kansas. 1957, Don McIntyre defeats Kurt Von Brunner to win the NWA Georgia Southern Heavyweight title in Atlanta, Georgia, ending Von Brunner's second reign and beginning McIntyre's 13th. Grooving into the 60s, 1961, the Mysterious Medics defeat Jackie and Joey Fargo for the Gulf Coast NWA Southern Tag Team titles in Mobile, Alabama, beginning their third reign. 1963 sees Dick Steinborn defeat Tarzan Taylor to win the Georgia World Heavyweight title in Atlanta, Georgia. 1967, NWA Big Time Wrestling held a 5-team tournament for the NWA Texas Tag Team titles in San Antonio, Texas. The finals see Paul DeMarco and Luis Hernandez defeat Jim Bernard and Tarzan Taylor to win the NWA Texas Tag Team titles. 1968 sees Ron Etcherson win his second NWA Central States Heavyweight title from Harley Race in St. Joseph, Missouri. Grabbing our best polyester and going to the 70s, 1974, Buddy Colt defeats Bill Watts for the Tri-State NWA North American Heavyweight title in Tampa, Florida, ending Watts' third reign. 1976, Big Bad John and Bill Dundee defeat Plowboy Stan Frazier and Jerry Lawler to win the Mid-American NWA Southern Tag Team titles in Memphis, Tennessee. And our last stop in the 70s, 1979, Mr. Soto and John Tolos defeat the Great Kabuki and Ricky Romero to win the NWA Western States Tag Team titles in Amarillo, Texas. Grabbing our boomboxes and going to the 80s, 1980, The Sheik defeats Mighty Igor to win the Detroit NWA United States Heavyweight title, beginning his 12th and final reign. The Sheik's Big Time Wrestling closed in October. At the same event, Frankie Lane and George Steele won the Detroit NWA World Tag Team titles from John Bonello and Randy Scott. 1982, Jimmy Garvin wins his second NWA Florida Heavyweight title in West Palm Beach, Florida, ending Mr. Wrestling 2's second reign. 1983, Bret Hart defeats Leo Burke for the Stampede North American Heavyweight title. This ends Burke's 8th reign, but begins Hart's 6th and final with Stampede's top title. 1985 sees Ted DiBiase and Steve Williams defeat the Rock and Roll Express, Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton, to win the Mid-South Tag Team titles in Houston, Texas, ending the Express's third reign. 1987, NWA World Champion Ric Flair defeats Jimmy Garvin twice in one day. pinning him at the matinee event in Charlestown, West Virginia, and an evening event in Cincinnati, Ohio. Grabbing our flannel and going to the decade of grunge, 1990, John Tatum defeats Bill Dundee for the USWA heavyweight title in Dallas, Texas. Sticking with the same title but going to 1991, Eric Embry ends Jeff Jarrett's 5th USWA heavyweight title reign in Dallas, Texas. 1993, WWF champion Hulk Hogan defeats IWGP heavyweight champion The Great Muta. Neither title was at stake, but in a pre-match interview, Hogan claimed the WWF title was nothing and the IWGP Championship was the real title. When word got back to WWF management, Hogan claimed that the interview was mistranslated, even though Hogan gave the promo in English. Staying in 1993, Papa Shango defeated Jerry Lawler in Memphis, Tennessee to win the USWA Unified World Heavyweight title, ending Lawler's 14th of 5,675 reigns. 1995, IWGP Tag Team Champion Muta defeats IWGP Heavyweight Champion Shinya Hashimoto to win the title. 1995, Psychosis defeats El Hijo del Santo for the Mexican National Welterweight title. 1998, the opening matchup on a WWF house show in Hamilton, Ontario, features future 7-time WWF Tag Team Champions, as well as multi-time future World Champions against one another, as Adam Copeland, aka Edge, defeats Christian Cage. Edge had had a few matches on WWF house shows over the previous months underneath his real name, and this was Christian's very first WWF match. Edge and Christian made their respective television debuts on June 22nd and September 27th of that year. Staying in 1998, in the 4th title change in as many days, Booker T defeats Chris Benoit for the WCW television title at a house show in Savannah, Georgia. And last but not least, 1998, ECW held WrestlePalooza 98. Prior to the show starting, a Legend ceremony was held with Dick Slater, Bob Armstrong, The Assassin, and Junkyard Dog, his last appearance before his death. In the main event, ECW World Champion Shane Douglas defeats Al Snow by reversing a sunset flip for the pin. The pay-per-view was one of Snow's final appearances before returning to the WWF. Those were your pro wrestling history highlights for May 3rd. I'm the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, and we'll see you tomorrow.